Hi. So we have seen indifference curve which shows two goods, units of goods X and units of goods Y, good Y on these two axes, and what kind of combination of goods in how much quantities of goods will I be consuming so that my utility does not change. So if I am moving from A to B, my utility should not change. B should neither be better than A nor it should be worse than A, and so A and B will be on the same indifference curve. I am indifferent between A and B, right? And what is A? A is 30 units of good Y and 6 units of good X, whereas B is 26 units of good Y and 7 units of good X. Okay, so A, B, C and D all are the points on the same indifference curve, and which shows that I'm indifferent between all these points, right? Now, MRS, we have seen that marginal rate of substitution is delta Y by delta X, and it changes. Over here it is 4, whereas over here it is going to be 1, right? So we can see that. So along the indifference curve we can see diminishing marginal rate of substitution. And why does it happen? Because of diminishing marginal utility, we value more of good X when we have less of X, and we value less good Y when we have more of good Y. Whereas over here, by this point, from moving from C to D, we have considerable amount of considerable quantity of good X, whereas we have depleted our stock of good Y, so we value good Y more than what we value good X now. Okay, what we were doing earlier, then over here good X will value less, right? So MRS will be more over here, whereas less over here, because of the diminishing marginal utility, right? Now we have seen that the marginal rate of substitution is C, the ratio of the extra amount of one product needed to compensate for the loss of a unit of another, right? Now, and if we see this, suppose Jessica is currently spending £200 per week on a combination of two goods X and Y that gives her best value for money. The prices of these goods are £2 and £5 respectively. What is the MRS of X for Y, right? So marginal rate of substitution of X for Y, right? So we do the price of X divided by price of Y, and we get 0.4 as our answer, right? Now we are going to consider the indifference map. Now what is the indifference map? Indifference map is all the indifference curves on the graph. Okay. So earlier we have seen that, say, this is the indifference curve. We have found out every combination. We start with one particular combination of good X and good Y, and then we try to find out all the other combinations of the quantities of good X and Y, so that all these combinations are neither better nor worse for that individual. Okay, and obviously this will be different for every individual, and so it depends on you yourself how your indifference curve will look like. But few things we are certain about, and that is that it will be downward sloping, because more is better. You like more of both the goods. So if you want to be at the same level of satisfaction, then if you are reducing one good, then you got to increase the other good. And if you are increasing first good, you got to decrease the other good, so that you are at the same level of satisfaction. So that's why it's going to be downward sloping, and it is going to be convex. It's going to be like this, because obviously that diminishing marginal utility plays a role here, and you have diminishing marginal rate of substitution from left to right? So that's why it is going to be a convex curve. Now, an indifference curve shows all combination of x and y that give a particular level of utility that we have seen. And now, the further out the curve, the higher the level of utility, right? So if I am going to have a point which is going to be more of x and y both, right, then I am going to be more satisfied than earlier case, okay? And then all these points of the higher, now the new higher level of satisfaction will give me this new IC, which are calling I2, right? Now, and we go on, higher the level of, higher the indifference curve, higher is going to be the level of utility, and so we have all these utility curves, and this is our indifference curve map, right? And now let's consider if it is possible to see to have two indifference curves intersecting. Okay, so is this possible? I1, the blue one, and I2, the red one, is this, and they are intersecting at this point, is this possible? Okay, now consider that the point of intersection is A. Okay, now B is on indifference curve 1, whereas as per the definition of indifference curve, A and B both are giving the same level of satisfaction, whereas as per the same indifference curve definition, A and C also have to give the same level of satisfaction, as A is on both indifference curve 1 and indifference curve 2, right? But we can see that B and C, between B and C, B has lower of x than that of C, whereas in the same manner B has also lower of y than that of C. Okay, so B is the combination of goods x and y, where both goods x and y are actually in less amount than that in C, right? So obviously C will have higher level of satisfaction than B, and so B and C cannot be on the same indifference curve. So if B and C cannot be on the same indifference curve, A and B and A and C also cannot be on the same indifference curve, right? So that is, by the way, called transitivity. You can look for it on Google what it means. But because of that, you cannot have. It is impossible to have two indifference curves intersecting. Okay. So a consumer cannot be indifferent between A and both B and C, right? Let's go through this question. Indifference curves cannot intersect because this would imply that, right? The consumer has imperfect information? Not really, right? The ratio of the marginal utilities has risen, has nothing to do with intersecting two indifference curves. Both prices and income have fallen. Not really, has nothing to do with that yet. The consumer is not a rational agent. Probably that's the case. Okay, let's consider the last one. The marginal rate of substitution has become negative. Okay, two indifference curves intersecting, all the other things are not really the reason. An individual believes that B is better and C is better than B, but A is equal to B and A is equal to C. That won't happen, right? So the consumer is not a rational agent in that sense, right?